Today's throwback, why we're having a look at the Mezco Cinema of Fear Series 2, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. We're having a look today at Jason Voorhees. I figured with the fact that, of course, by this stage of the game now, NECA is now producing Friday the 13th figures. We haven't yet quite got ourselves a Friday the 13th Part 6 as of at the time I'm shooting this review. But I thought it was a prime opportunity to go back and have a look at some of the older figures that we got that were, from the Friday the 13th franchise. Up to the point of NECA reacquiring the license, one of the only ways to get multiple Jasons was through Mezco toys. As a whole, I think this figure is still pretty good. It has flaws to it, but then again, it is an older figure, and the fact that it is one of the first toy lines to actually carry a franchise Friday the 13th series, I think Mezco as a whole did pretty good. Having a look at the actual figure itself, and actually, another reason why I want to redo this review too was simply because if you watch the original review that I did, it was very long ago, and obviously lighting and everything as it was, I didn't get a chance to properly display and properly produce a video in my standards, I think, to what I wanted to put out there. So we're doing it again. We're doing it again. In the way of his details, he's actually pretty good. Let's zoom into his face. And for starters, I think his mask is really solid. Now, I find with this particular Jason, I find the mask doesn't ever really sit well on his face. There's always this big gap where you can see his jaw. Not necessarily a bad thing. I think for the most part, Mezco did a fantastic job on the figure as a whole. I really like the weathering and the scratches and whatnot that they've done in the mask. You can also see that there's a couple of coats of paint on the actual mask, and I think as a whole works really well. Obviously, with it being a Mezco Jason, his mask is removable, so we'll just take the mask off. Now, I find you have to be really careful taking these masks off, as I don't want to jinx anything. The problem is, let me zoom over here for you. The problem is there's this little lip. You see right here, there's that little lip where that mask kind of ends up sitting on. It was probably a bad, I know they wanted to sculpt that in, but it was a bad choice putting that little tiny tab there, that little extra sculpt, that it makes things very hard for getting the figure mask off. This figure has also been in storage for a while, so I've had it packed away. So again, it was nice. Let me just get this mask off here. It was nice to kind of revisit this line. There we go. As you can see, let's zoom the camera back there. There is Jason's face. There is the mask. The straps actually are fairly durable on this Jason mask. Some of the other Jason masks from Mezco, a little more fragile, but this one actually is pretty good. That would be awesome as a ring. Imagine a Jason Voorhees mask ring. I totally would wear that. But as for his face, we didn't really see much of Jason's face in Part 6, so there is, of course, some artists' perception. I guess they probably would have taken this from some designs of the character, but I like this little aspects of it. You can see a lot of the details, the decay put in his head. You can see where all these gashes and wounds from the previous movies have now taken their toll and they've just decayed, and his face overall is just a more zombified Jason Voorhees. Obviously from this point he's a little more superhuman. Some people like that, some people don't, but I think overall it works well. Let's just put his mask back on. Now, this particular Jason does not come with any alternate head. Part 3 Jason did from Mezco, as well as Part 4. Jason Goes to Hell Jason did not have an alternate mask either, or alternate head either. I like, too, that it's a wider mask, too. Again, it just doesn't really sit very well on his face. And then overall, he's a very different looking Jason than what we've gotten in the past. He still sports the shirt, the pants as well. But now, of course, Jason's sporting some lovely gardening gloves, not really gardening gloves, and he's also sporting a fantastic utility belt. You can see that there are some bullet holes riddled in his body. Again, an older figure, but I think paint-wise was done very, very well. You can see all the little different washes going on there. If NECA was not to release a Part 6 Jason, which again, by likely they will, at the time that you're seeing this review, they have not released it. We're only up to, I think, Part 4 Jason. In the way of his articulation, now one thing that's nice is the fact that he has elbow joints. That's one really good aspect. He has elbow joints. It's not a pre-posed figure, and it's one of the earlier cases of a horror figure that actually had it. This might have even predated some of the NECA figures that actually had articulated elbows. You can also see one thing that he has is a ball-jointed waist. Good and not good. I mean, it's not too loose, and it holds up still relatively well, and you can get some pretty good flexibility without simply just being a waist swivel. His head is on a ball joint. And actually, really more so, it's his neck. Due to the sculpt, his neck is the ball joint. He's got ball jointed shoulders. Again, that bend in the elbow. He has a hinged hand, which also will rotate. And then when you pretty much get down to the legs, squat. You got a whole lot of squat. Although, to be fair, the sculpt in the legs is really nice. I like the kind of the shredded pant leg bottoms there. And the boots are rather aged and worn. Apparently, he buys his boots from China. In the way of the accessories that would have come with this Jason, you stay there, Jason, for a second. You get yourself an iconic Jason Voorhees Tombstone. The grass going on there, some really nice age to the rock. You can see a little bit of the chips going on there, some cracks. You can't help but wonder, maybe Spot missed something, but you can't help but wonder if Jason was a serial killer and his mother was already deceased. Who would have taken the time to bury Jason with a relatively expensive, not expensive, but to obviously take the time to do all this? Who would have invested time in that? They could have easily just thrown him off a cliff somewhere, his body. Anyways, whoever invested the time in his tombstone did a fantastic job. There you go, Jason Voorhees. Other accessories you get yourself a spear. Flips him over. Don't leave home without it. Little credit card floating in the water. Other accessories you get a head. Well, she wouldn't be making any noise, but you get a head. You get yourself a hunting knife, like so. The one thing I find Mezco was not very good for was putting blood on weapons. It always looked a little too strong of a color. You get yourself the trusty machete. And it kind of just looks like paint as opposed to blood. You get yourself a heart, which I believe was reused with the Jason Goes to Hell Jason as well from the Mezco line. Pretty good detail on that as well. Singular, looks like there's one color, maybe a couple of, maybe a darker red in some areas as well. And lastly, you get yourself a human arm. Severed on the end there, some blood going on there, some blood on the hand. You could take the machete, which I did in the initial review. You could put the machete in his hand. And his one hand, well, this hand is pretty much ideal for your machetes and other things to hold. This hand is ideal. It's nice and open, that if you find the sweet spot, you kind of have to take the narrow end of the arm, like right there. You see, like there's a little ledge. If you finagle it just right, it takes a little bit of Takes a little bit of, like I said, finagling to get it in his hand. But you can have actually Jason holding the arm, holding the machete. A very, very neat looking touch. I like that. And I would almost even display Jason holding the arm, holding the machete. If not, again, your default Jason would just be a machete, of course, sporting in his hand. So that's also a really, really nice touch. Just take the machete out of his hand. Poor guy. I'll put the machete into Jason's hand. It's only fitting, that's the way it should be. Overall, I just really like this figure. I think, I'm willing to say though, like between the couple of Jasons that we got from the Mezco Cinema Fear line, I think as a whole this Jason works the best. I did initially really like the Jason from Part 4, but I think for an overall paint and overall execution, I think this Jason works a lot better. The sculpt is pretty solid on the face, and again, for an older line of figures, the fact that Mezco did this first, I think, has to be commended. We can only hope, again, that NECA will be producing continued lines of Jason figures. Part 6, I would hope, would be down the road. We'll see how they do at the line of figures. We'll see how well they do at Part 6. But in the meantime, certainly as a backup, a great piece to have on display is this guy right here. The Mezco Cinema Fear Series 2, Jason Voorhees from Part 6, Jason Lives. I think I'm going to give him a 7.5. Unfortunately, a little more of this now in aftermarket, but if you can find him, I would still say worth picking up. Today's throwback, we're having a look again at the Mezco Cinema Fear Series 2, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Voorhees. Certainly stick around, guys. More videos heading your way. See you guys next time.